Hello, today we are going to look at multiplying decimals together. It's pretty much like multiplying any whole numbers together, but there's an extra layer of steps where you move the decimal place around. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Now, in terms of setting out, this is what I would typically have for like a question. So let's say it's question 1A, and then there's the question. And I would write my answer down here. However, I typically would like to keep my calculation or thinking off to one side because I need, it'll make sense later on, but I typically do like to put my working over here and then bring my answer back, okay? It'll be clear why I typically do this in a moment. But for all other maths, we would expect you to just keep working this way, okay? So the trick is, if you have a decimal number, you're going to look at the decimal place, a decimal point, sorry, and you're going to move it backwards until there are no more decimal places. Okay, so here I've got two decimal places. If I push the decimal point backwards twice, so it now ends up over here, then we basically have no decimal places left. That's the objective. But the trick, you must remember how many times you've moved it. So here I've moved it twice, so that's why I've written it down there, just to keep track. And now what's that going to look like? Well, if I've moved for the number 12.31, if I've moved the decimal place backwards two times, then what am I left with? I'm left with 1, 2, 3, 1. And now we're just going to do a multiplication problem here. So multiply that by 7. Let's quickly do this one here. So 7 times 1, well, that makes 7. 7 times 3 is 21. 7 times 2, that's 14. So 14 plus that 2 I saved earlier, so that makes 16. 7 times 1, that's 7, plus the 1 here I saved earlier, that makes 8. So what we're left with, 8,617. Now remember I said earlier we're going to put back the decimal places at the very end, but do not put it in at this stage. Because if you put it here, because if you did it, 1, 2, if you put it here, then you are absolutely wrong. Because if you've actually made a wrong statement, okay? Maths has to be true how it's written. So 1,000 times 7 is not 86, roughly speaking. So you see how this is wrong, okay? So you cannot restore the decimal places. You cannot put it in here, okay? You have to rewrite your answer somewhere else. So let's take this answer we've calculated and put it over here. So 8, 6, 1, 7. Okay, I've just copied it. I've just taken the number and I put it over here. Now I can do that step where I restore the decimal point. So we moved it backwards 2 spaces. That means we have to move it forward 2 spaces. So my undo button's not working. 1, 2. It's now there. There's my answer. 86.17 is correct. Let's move on. 3.56 multiplied by 2.3. This time here, I've got 2 numbers that are both decimals, and I have to multiply them together. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm just going to keep moving that decimal point backwards, but I'm just going to keep track of how many times I've done this. So I've moved this back 1, 2 times, and I moved this one back another time. So that's an extra 1 place moved. Let's do our thinking on the side. So it's going to be 3, 5, 6 multiplied by 2, 3. Let's do it. Okay, 3 times 6 is 18, save the 1. 3 times 5 is 15, save that 1 as well. Oh, actually, 15 plus the 1 I have there, that makes 16. 3 times 3 is 9, plus that 1 I've saved earlier, so that makes 10. We're now good to go up to the 2 column. Now, before I do this one here, I have to drop down a 0. So there's a 0 I have to drop down first because it's 20 multiplied by 6. Okay, so that 0 from 20 has to be accounted for. That's why we get a 0 down here. Okay, so let's do, change back to blue. So 2 times 6 is 12, save the 1. 2 times 5 is 10, plus the 1 I saved, so that makes 11. 2 times 3 is 6, plus the 1 I've saved, that makes 7. Now we're going to add them together. So 8 plus 0 is 8. 6 plus 2 is 8. 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 plus 7 is 8. Okay? Remember, do not put the decimal place back yet. Okay? So do not do that now. Just copy it for now. So this is equal to 8188. Now I'm going to restore the decimal place. So I've moved it back a total of 3 times in that direction. So we must move it this direction a total of 3 times. 1, 2, 3. So it now lives here. The answer is 8.188, and that's the correct answer. Let's move on. Here I'm going to do a slightly different trick. Okay, so I am going to use this one here. I move it back 2 spaces. I'm just keeping track of how many times. However, when you got a number that has lots of trailing zeros, then you can use another trick, which is to move the decimal point upwards. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, the reason why I've moved it forwards is because I want to basically change this into a whole number. It makes the number simpler. Okay, I just got to keep track of how many times I've moved it forwards. Okay, let's do the thinking here on the side. So the problem now becomes 265 multiplied by 4, because I've got rid of all these zeros. That's much easier to solve. Let's quickly do this one. So 4 times 5 is 20. 4 times 6 is 24, plus the bit I saved, that's 26. 4 times 2 is 8, plus the 2 I saved makes 10. Now I'm going to copy this one out, put it over here, and now I'm going to restore the decimal place. So since I moved it backwards 2 spaces, I must move it forward, so 1, 2 spaces. But I've also moved it the other direction here. I've moved it this direction 4 spaces. There I must move it this way 4 spaces. So here I'm going to take it from where I left off, so which is here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it now lives here. I have to put some zeros to account for those spaces. So wherever you have an empty sort of hoop, you put down a new 0 to fill its space here. Okay, so that's the finished result. The answer is what was it? 106,000, and we're done. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something, and I'll catch you in the next video.